now I was down with it. Love y'all, you hear me? Man, it feel good out here. Look good too, look. You hear me? It's like a nigga on the end of the world. Fuck, I got some notes, you hear me? I just want to get some of this shit off. I guess it's cool. You hear me? But the notes I got written down is looks could be deceiving. You hear me? Never judge a book by its cover. First impression is the best impression. You hear me? And I'm about to tie all that into one thing, you hear me? Because everything is everything. And also, he say, she say shit. You hear me? All this shit tied together to some type of degree. You hear me? But, yeah, man, let's get to it, though. Why I say looks could be deceiving, you hear me? And that's also ties in to never judge a book by its cover. Just cause a person look a certain type of way, you hear me, don't mean that that's actually them. You hear me? Just cause they carry themselves a certain type of way don't actually mean that that's them. You hear me? They can be carrying themselves that type of way, you hear me, to impress somebody else. You get what I'm saying? And that also ties into the music and shit that a nigga be listening to. You hear me? So when you listen to a certain music, you get what I'm saying? You want to move a certain way, you hear me? And let people know that that's how you move. But now it's ready to music. You hear me? So, and the first impression is the best impression. The reason I say the first impression is the best impression is because the moment somebody see you, you hear me, they just automatically go off that shit. For the first time, they just automatically go off it. You get what I'm saying? Oh, so, fucking first impression is the best impression, you hear me? So, for a good example, let's say you go to a fucking club or something like that, right? And, you know, you vibing, whatever, you hear me? And, you know, you drunk or they drunk, you hear me? And y'all just all of a sudden y'all just start having a conversation or whatever, you hear me? And the first thing y'all really link on, you hear me? Let's just say like fucking UFOs or something. You hear me? That's the first thing y'all started talking about, right? So bam, next time you see this person, you hear me? Y'all talk or whatever, that's gonna be the goal to go to. You hear me? UFOs and shit. You hear me? That was the foundation of y'all conversation. You hear me? Or y'all friendship or whatever it is. You get what I'm saying? That's the foundation. So your first impression is your best impression. You hear me? So all that, you know, carrying all this fake ass energy and shit, you hear me, just to be portrayed a certain type of way. You get what I'm saying? Nah, you hear me? Just be real with yourself. You hear me? That's it. Just be real with yourself. You hear me? And never judge a book by its cover. Just because a person is dressed a certain type of way, you hear me, or whatever like that, that don't actually mean that that's them. You hear me? These people could be going through shit. You get what I'm saying? So you really not supposed to judge nobody. You hear me? You judging them is like you judging yourself. You hear me? You judging other people is like you judging yourself. That's why they say the things that you don't like about other people is things that you really don't like about yourself. You hear me? And that ties into like nigga be like, man, I wouldn't wear that. You hear me, man? I don't know why you got that on. I would, cause nigga, that's them. They wearing that shit. You hear me, nigga? It's not you. You hear me? Of course you not gonna do it, nigga. That's why you ain't buy it. You hear me? Like, come on, man, be real with yourself, man. Like, come on, son. You hear me? Y'all really gotta let people live their lives. You hear me? Cause however they choose to live it. You hear me? Like, and I understand me, you hear me, trying to make videos and shit like that, man. I'm not trying to tell a nigga how they live their life. You hear me? Believe me, before I even decided to make videos, you hear me, I already had a full understanding. You hear me? I'm not trying to tell a nigga how they live their life, bro. You hear me? They live their life however you want to live it. You hear me? Like, fuck, you want to go out there beat motherfuckers up all day? Hey, man. You hear me? That's why they say, you hear me? Oh, bam. Let me rewind. And that ties all to also, You hear me? Got it written down. Oh yeah, here, go right here. You make your bed, you lay in it. You hear me? Meaning the things that you do, say, or believe, you hear me, makes up your consequences of your actions. You hear me? So if I choose to live my life the way that I live it, you hear me, or I believe the shit that I choose to believe, you hear me, if something was to go wrong in my life, I can only blame myself. You hear me? So you make your bed, you lay in it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, man, stop fucking playing. You hear me? Stop playing, man. You make your bed, you lay in it, bro. You hear me? Shit that I see, you hear me, and I believe, you hear me? Believe me, I know, nigga. I made my bed, you hear me, and I'm laying in it. You hear me? But the crazy thing is, I'm walking around. You hear me? Like I'm literally looking at the fucking dope. You hear me? I'm about to walk through it. You hear me? I'm about to walk through it, bro. You hear me? So all this. But yeah, man. So right now I'm at a point of, you know, trying to get a grasp on non-duality. You hear me? I mean, I completely understand it. You hear me? There's no good without bad, there's no bad without good, because you can't rectify what's what without the other. You hear me? But at the same time, overall, you hear me, there is no bad or no good. You hear me? It's whatever you want it to be. You know what I'm saying? That's why they made, supposedly, you hear me, is choices. You hear me? You could choose whether or not you want to be bad or be good. You hear me? But it's really not that. You hear me? You gotta see the whole picture. Yeah, man. That too, you hear me, looks could be deceiving. Just because this person look a certain type of way, you hear me, don't mean that that's actually them. You get what I'm saying? Nigga could walk around all black with a mask on, you hear me, just to be portrayed that way, but behind closed doors, you hear me, this nigga really not like that. You get what I'm saying? This is why you never judge somebody, you hear me? You see them and you send them that energy, you hear me, and that don't be it, you hear me? And all this shit also goes to he say, she say shit, you hear me? Bam. They say, I put, you hear me, what I just wrote down the other day, you hear me? He say, she say is no good, you hear me, / invalid because of the energy of misdirection. You get what I'm saying? All right, now let's say you go to a job, you hear me? You just started working at a job, you hear me? And they got these two people, you hear me? And they don't really fuck with each other. You get what I'm saying? Because they already been bumping heads or whatever like that. So since you the new person, you hear me, you don't really understand the energy in their job, you hear me, or what's going on. So either one of them, you hear me, it could be both too. You hear me? One of them, you hear me, is gonna be that's gonna walk up, you hear me, start the conversation. Oh yeah, woo 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 woo, you hear me, y'all get to know each other and shit. And then he go to tell you, don't fuck with that person because of this or this and this and this and this. And, you hear me? I mean, that's completely up to you whether or not you want to listen to him, you hear, fuck with him or not. You hear me? But overall, you really should. You gotta be like, oh, all right. You hear me? Just let it be. You hear me? Don't give it no type of energy. You hear me? Because that's what they looking for. You hear me? They looking for extra energy. You hear me? So they can overpower the next person. Get what I'm saying? Bam. Let's say you did listen to this person. You get what I'm saying? About whatever. You hear me? So you don't fuck with that person. You don't even know him. You just don't fuck with the person. You hear me? Just because of what this person said about him. You hear me? And that person that they was talking bad about could be some type of energy that could help you out. You get what I'm saying? That's just because they don't fuck with each other. You hear me? Don't mean you gotta listen to them. You hear me? Let's say you don't listen to the nigga, you hear me, or whatever, you hear me, and you still go talk to the person, not saying, oh, this person said that, you hear me, but let's say you go to this person, this nigga is gonna do the same shit. Bam, y'all gonna start talking, you hear me, y'all gonna get to know each other and shit like that, you hear me, and then this nigga gonna be like, hey, don't fuck with that person because of this and this and this and this and this and this. Me personally, you hear me, I don't indulge in he say, she say shit, you hear me, because it be bullshit, bro. You hear me? And like I was telling my partner the other day, you hear me? Just because this person say that, you gotta really think about it, you hear me? by time information get to where it's supposed to be, you hear me, it's other energies and shit that's added to it. You get what I'm saying? All this other shit, you hear me, is not what it was at the beginning, you hear me? By the time it get to where it was supposed to go, you hear me, it's extra shit on it, you hear me? And that's not what's up. You hear me? Don't just listen to no he say she say shit, man, cause that person could really be helping you out. You hear me? In a long run, bro. You hear me? You could be dealing with something in your life, you hear me, that's going on, you hear me? And that person that they said not to talk to could have been a nigga that to help you. You hear me? That's why I don't fuck with he say she say shit. That was a different perspective. You hear me? From yours, you hear me? Let's say somebody coming to you. Oh man, this person said this about you. You hear me? This person said that about you. That's completely up to you if you believe it. You know what I'm saying? You hear me? Unless you go ask that person whatever it is, you hear me, and let them tell you themselves. You hear me? That's why me personally, that's why I don't fuck with he say she say shit. You hear me? It's all extra shit added to it. You hear me? Like, come on, man. I ain't got time for it. Yeah, when it comes to your personal energy, let people believe what they want to believe about you. You hear me? Especially if they don't know you at all. Let them believe it. You hear me? That's on them. You hear me? At the end of the day, they cutting themselves short. You hear me? Because you could have been that person that could have helped them get to that next level. You get what I'm saying? And that all that shit ties into fucking he say she say shit. Lips can be deceiving. Never judge a bush by its cover. And first impression is the best impression. All that shit tie up into each other, bro. You hear me? The thing is really levels to this shit. You hear me? It's really levels to this shit, bro. I've been observing my whole life. You hear me? And now at the point, I don't just observe physical shit, you hear me? I observe spiritual shit too, you hear me? Like I see it whenever I receive it, you hear me? I see it from a whole nother angle, you hear me? And that way I'm able to process it and break it down the way I do, you hear me? And the fact me being a Leo and me being creative, you hear me? I come up with things different, you hear me? It's all right, it's just like as a Leo, you hear me? Bam, let's say you go to a job, right? And they tell you to do this way, right? So at the end of the day, you hear me, you're going to have your way of doing it, you hear me, once you find your way around it. You get what I'm saying? Oh, bam, I could really do this, you hear me, and create a shortcut. I could do this, you hear me, and make it a little bit better. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, man, look, I done lost track of thought, man. Look, the shit be that fucking fast, bro. Yeah, look, that's what I'm saying. As a Leo, you hear me, and you being creative, you hear me, you come up with your own way of breaking shit down, you hear me, saying things, you hear me, it's just a different angle of how you saying it, you hear me? I'm gonna give you some shit that I came up with, you hear me, and it made sense to me, you get what I'm saying? I'm not telling other people to do this shit, you hear me, man, look, you do it however you do it, you get what I'm saying? All right, let's see, you know how most people say, you hear me, love is evil when you see it backwards, right? That's what they say. Love is evil when you say it backwards. Only reason it makes sense in that way, you hear me, is the fact that, like I said, I'm gonna just give you my shit. Love is evil when you say it backwards. Well, that's one way of saying it, you hear me, but how I see it, you hear me, evil, you hear me, that's just half of the partial of the word evolve, evolution, you hear me? So the love, you hear me, is to evolve, you hear me, you have to love everybody. You get what I'm saying? I really look at shit different, you hear me? When I get information, you hear me, I do my own research on it, and then how it's processed through me, you hear me? I break shit down, you hear me, and I add other shit to it, you hear me? So just because I say that, you hear me, don't mean that it works for you. You get what I'm saying? It could, love could be. That's crazy, you hear me? That's not even evil. Evil. You hear me? Hey, that shit is evolve, nigga. Stop playing, man. Evolve, nigga. Love, you hear me? To love everybody is to evolve. And when it comes down to love, you hear me? To really loving people and shit like that, you gotta let people, everybody have flaws. You hear me? So you don't judge them on their flaws. The shit that they do that's fucked up towards you or anybody else, you get what I'm saying? You don't judge a person on their flaws, you hear me? That's why you have to let people be them. You hear me? Like if you was to do some fucked up shit, you hear me? Nah, I wouldn't judge you on it. You get what I'm saying? But if you constantly was to do it, you hear me, over and over, and not, then at that point it's purpose. It's purposely, you hear me?